Life be driving me crazy like, and my friends be like, it's not that deep, right? And the fam be saying, you're in your feelings, what? All I know is life is raggedy.
Hello, and welcome back to the Reforming Pessimist podcast. It's nice to be here. I'm a banger, and I wanted to do a check-in, like I said before, just to let you know where I am mentally, what I'm doing, because I want to be real with you guys, and I don't want to be here talking about reforming from my pessimism, which have given me a side effect of multiple mental illnesses that I tend to battle with. And so dealing with the things that causes all of these illnesses is hopefully going to help me get better along the way. So as I'm doing the work, because I'm still doing the work, so I won't be here and be like, oh, I'm great, I'm fine, and it's going to be an amazing journey, and here are 20 tips to get to pure happiness and pure joy in life and healing completely from your mental health. That's not something I'm going to be talking about. I'm mostly going to be very real about my journey and how it's, going and how it's not so going, because this is real for me and I don't want to sell pipe dreams. And I think the living with mental illness is a thing where sometimes you just can't mess about with it. So you have to kind of deal with it with a certain level of seriousness to be able to kind of progress. So I say this to say, how am I doing? And I'm going for a bit of a moment at the moment. I'm going for a bit of a lull. So actually, just to also give you a little bit of background, my depression has been really bad for a very, very, very long time. But for the past couple of years, it's not been as crazy as it's been, let's say, for a good 15 years before the last 5 years, I would say. So, before, where I used to have episodes back to back, in terms of depressive episodes, back to back, with very small breaks in between where I come out of my own world and hell. I will also have moments where I get to have a break, but that's also because I'd made decisions to change my environment and change my surroundings and the people I'm around, and in making these very crucial decisions, which hopefully at some point I will give you a proper breakdown in terms of how I started this journey and how I'm progressing so far within this journey of basically working and dealing with my mental illness to hopefully give me a good life. Hopefully I'll be able to do that one day. But I've gone from that kind of breaks to now doing really, really well. So I have good moments, and then I have really sad moments. But the progress in terms of what I'm making, I'm noticing that I've gotten to a place now where I am currently, where I'm in a very neutral zone, where there's as much sadness as there is as much joy. So it's a very balanced, zero of neutrality, which I love, because I'm able to dip into both worlds genuinely and be happy genuinely and also be sad genuinely. Whilst before the last year, I would say, I didn't really experience my joy and my happiness in a very genuine way, because I denied myself of it by maybe telling myself that I didn't deserve it, or things are so crazy around me and things are so hard around me. Why am I allowing myself to experience joy? Because my depression was the biggest character in my life, just weighed me down all the time. So I couldn't really allow myself to, experience joy and be happy. So in this long intro, I just wanted to say that where I am is I'm in a place of neutralities, which is going to be a lot. of the week where I'm in between sadness and happiness. But that's also because I've had a couple of things happen to me that which were massive as well over the years. So as much as I progress in my healing in terms of depression, there's a lot of life things that happen that brings me back into it. And that's why it's reforming, people. That's why it's reforming, because it's a long journey. It's a long ass journey. So yeah, the back and forth is it can be very draining sometimes, but also I would say fun. Because it gives me some humor to understand that, like, this whole thing is not as, you know, straight and narrow as it may be or it may seem when you are in the world and watching other people, you know, deal with their issues, and you see a lot of happiness and a lot of like, oh my god, like I survived and it worked out, and it's like, you know, it's perfect and happily ever after, you know, in the world that you hear a lot of happily ever after. So somebody who struggled with mental illness, I'm working so hard towards happily ever after. But in working towards this happily ever after, I realized that there's just so many roadblocks and so many treachery. That makes it hard. That makes the journey hard. However, even in that, I want to pursue this journey, and I really want to get to a place where all the things that cause me to be pessimistic about life and my outlook towards life, and all the things that lead me to be so now down and negative about my life that it becomes a form of depression in my life where I just cannot control, because it's just like in some way built in my DNA. I'm able to work on that, specifically for myself, because I also know that like depression impacts people in so different ways. Like, this is my own one unique experience, and I wonder what it's like for everybody else who's living with it quietly, even though people talk about it online, but like they experience it on a daily basis, and with that experience have to go out into the world and function like a normal adult, and or adult or child or whatever you are in the world, you know, function like with it whilst living life, like whilst participating in society. And, you know, also recognizing the like, because of the world that we live in, where joy and happiness is much more rewarded than sadness and, you know, being low or being quiet. Even for people who are like literally shy and are out there, and they're just like, you know, shy. They're just not as sociable, like how they get pushed away by society because they're not boisterous or loud or happy. So having that version of yourself that's so depressed or that's really anxious or whatever it may be, that's kind of like holding you back from really truly being able to be yourself. Because when people get a whiff of it or they experience it, it becomes very, very hard for them to be able to sometimes handle ordeal, because they themselves also may not be either be overwhelmed or whatnot. So even though we have a very open society, it's not a lot of people who are comfortable with sitting with a lot of sadness all the time. Maybe that's my opinion, but I've also, in all honesty, also met some really amazing people who have given me space to be able to be my fully entire sad self, without any repercussions or without any judgments or without any pushback. And those people, they become really special to you because they really allow you to be your entire self without having to augment yourself to fit certain character or certain idea or image of yourself, because you're wanting to present a certain way to the world instead of being who you are. Because even though the world does say to us that we can be who we are, but we all know that's bullshit. We all know that that's bullshit, because we're built as human creatures to seek validation and want to be liked and want to be seen and, you know, viewed and appreciated. We're built as that. And then we are shamed for things that people do not agree with or support or, you know, go along with. So you have those counterparts that really impact the way that you move around when you are in the world and in the public in terms of like being yourself. So all of these things, like for instance, your mental illness, it can in turn become a massive insecurity where you don't want people to see that, like, you have this illness that makes you weak. And because a lot of people will say that, oh, you have a mental illness, you're mentally weak, you need to boost yourself up and be strong and push along. And for some of us Christians, pray it away. And have the self-will to pray it away. And that is actually not the reality of living with it. And sometimes it's not somebody who's experiencing what I'm experiencing. It's very hard for a lot of people to understand where I'm coming from. And even in sometimes understanding, so for a lot of people also comes with maturity and education and learning to understand, because a lot of us tend to go with our own human experience. So yeah, in a very long-winded way of talking about checking in on myself and living with mental health, it's a very for me anyway, it's been a very, very challenging and complex thing to have, and also to be able to participate in society, and particularly as well, like, when we grow up, particularly if you struggle with mental health issues in particular, and you're trying to cope with your mental illness, for instance, and you're picking up different coping mechanisms to soothe whatever is causing you to be very depressed, particularly from a very young age. I'm speaking from my experience from a very young age, for instance. Soothe and not let things be too heavy on your heart. And so for me, from very young age, I got drawn to the TV. It was like my guardian angel. It gave me everything that could get me to be imaginative and create stories in my head that were, to me, beautiful at whatever age that I was. For younger Lydia, it was like, having my own family because of a very need and a very deep craving of wanting to be part of a family. And so in turn, I was like me having my own family and like giving my family what I needed at that young age. Or, for teenage Lydia, being a boss babe. Running amok, girl, like literally just being there in that corporate office, because I was watching a lot of Suits and a lot of, courtroom drama. So I was like, boss babe, girl, let's do it. Funnily enough, I didn't even go through that. I literally quit law at college. I was like, yeah, I'm not going to do that because I don't have the patience and the emotions to be able to lie. Or not even just lie, but support things that maybe my values do not align with, per se. So I gave up on law. But and just all of those things, like kind of being TV in particular for me anyway. For some people it's comic books, some people's books, for some people it's like, board games and, video games for others, like, where you have something, a tool that kind of gets you to escape the world that you are in, and just create a beautiful world in your head where it's not so much heaviness, but actually also so much joy. And I'm looking forward to doing, some overviews of some of the things that have really helped me mentally when I needed to like escape and go out there. Like a good example is like when I was a kid, I grew up in Ghana, and in Ghana they have this they used to import a lot of television shows from across the world, so you got the chance to watch like multiple genres from across the world. They didn't have to be just American stuff. Like I didn't even get to start watching American stuff until my cousins went to uni and they started bringing in the American stuff like Desperate Housewives and some of Tyler Perry's movies, like the one where that woman got done dirty by her husband, which most of the time is the same story. But but I don't remember all the Tyler Perry ones that I watched. And in Ghana they have this, like when DVD came into popularity, they used to do these CDs in the market where they'll burn multiple movies, and you just go and buy one CD and you have so many movies on it to watch, and it was kind of like fun. But for me, like my favorite, like some of my favorite memories from my childhood at that time, which there's not a lot of them, but like this is one of my absolute favorite, is that we will watch, my cousins were so into telenovelas, so they will watch it, and my little mind, I didn't know what was going on, but I knew I loved the drama. I knew I loved the drama. I did not have a clue what was happening because I couldn't even read the subtitles. I was like 6, 7, but I was like, yes, whatever storyline is being said here, I am into it. And that guy slapped that girl. Oh, and that one cheated on that one. Oh my God. If anybody watch telenovelas, they know it will give you the drama of your life. And while telenovelas were there, you know, one of my favorite telenovelas from my childhood was Rosalinda and Juana Love Hair, which I am a uni, bear in mind, and I'm watching Jane the Virgin. I'm like, hold on a minute, I've watched this before, I've seen this before somewhere. And it was Juana Love Hair or Joanna the Virgin, whatever it was. I'll call him Juana Love Hair because that's what I remember when I was a kid. It was like basically Joanna the Virgin. It was I think a Venezuelan telenovela that came out in the late 90s or early 2000s. Like I used to watch with my cousins, and it then became Jane the Virgin. I was like, oh my God, like mind blowing. So yeah, Rosalinda was one. Do I remember the storyline for Rosalinda? Hell no, but I knew it was dramatic. It was fun. It was so fun. And then there was Korean dramas as well. So as I'm talking about these things, I have to let you guys know that like these obsessions I built as a kid, these things I fell in love with as a kid, I'm still in love with them now. I am still in love with them now. Like, I mean, I don't watch as much telenovelas anymore because I don't know, it's very hard for me to sort out and find some good telenovelas that's out there. But I did watch Rhythm and Flow on Netflix. Enjoy that. So good. Music is on point. And I'm a Korean drama head. Like, and I'll also be talking about some Korean dramas on here. If you're into Korean drama, hello, welcome. Like I said, I'll be talking about some of my favorite things that helped me through dealing with this. So you'll hear about Korean dramas because they be taking me through and keeping me going. Let me tell you. So yeah, like, you know, and even more so Bollywood as well. And I also realized that the theme of a lot of these things that they came with a visual for me to consume stories and be able to create more stories in my head, but also they brought me music, which then in a way helped me to understand emotions and feel emotions, because at that stage of my life, particularly when I was younger and I was growing out, I was living with family, so I was going away from my parents. And I think as a child, like it felt very, very hard for me to just not be growing up with my own family and going away from my parents. So dealing with, because I'm seeing so much, parental love around me and kids with their parents and stuff like that, my little child brain was like, I want that, I need that, but I know I can't have it. And even if I'm giving it, it's not going to feel the same because it's not coming from the people that I want it to come from. So in knowing that, I shut off my emotions, which means that like I rarely had any emotions, which then fuels the depression because I'm just shutting my emotions down and processing everything. But it's a coping mechanism for me as a child, because if I don't feel anything, then when I see all these love and these happiness around me, I'm not also going to feel sad because I'm not noticing it anyway. I'm oblivious, which means I would also feel it in a sense. So I was like kind of protecting myself. But the moments where I could experience emotions and happiness was when I was watching these telenovelas or listening to my favorite musician as a kid, or getting into music. I remember there was this auntie who had these CDs of Phil Collins and Michael Bolton. Like, I'll be telling you guys, I didn't hear about a lot of the black musicians until I moved to the UK. Sorry. Ghanaians were obsessed with Celine Dion. Let me tell you. They were obsessed with Celine Dion. And also, I didn't hear about Beyonce and Usher until I was like, what, 12? Because my cousins went to uni and they came and introduced them to me. So I'm such a late bloomer in a lot of things, let me tell you. I got to experience a lot of things that most people experience in their childhood quite later in life. And I had to do a lot of catch up because I wanted to really also maybe satiate my childhood self and fill them up with all the things that they didn't get to do or get to have as a child. So yeah, those were the moments where I felt emotions per se. I think that's why I love TV so much, because even though it's play, and I think that even the best part about it for somebody who struggles with my issues and is because I don't want to feel reality and I don't want to be in the real because of whatever trauma or whatever hardship that I'm going through. Being in an escaped world where everything is not real but it's beautiful, where I can then adopt that and live in that world, because at the end of the day there's no repercussions, there's no backlash, there's nothing. That will feel much more nicer to be in that environment than be in my reality where it's just constant pain, even though I don't understand that it's pain in that moment, but now as an adult I do. So yeah, it's it's quite fascinating to me in terms of like those journey creating these coping mechanisms. So adopting TV and music into my life then kind of really helped lift me up. And then another coping mechanism that I then stumbled onto was faith. And I'll be in school and a lot of the kids, because at that time I wasn't really religious per se or believed in God per se, even though I've grown up around the church. A lot of the time I didn't really have a foundation or balance or stuff like that. And I meet kids in my school when I was in Ghana who were very serious about the faith, because they've adopted it and they really truly believe in it and they're in it. So I go and I participate with them, and I got involved, and it was just a place where I also felt happy, and I could also emote without any sort of judgment or without anybody being around me who knew me being there as well, other than people who I knew cared for me, like my friends from school. So it was like really, really nice to be in that faith environment and just have people that love you and are there for you, even though we're literally 13-year-old kids, let me tell you that. Like literally kids, but these kids just being so supportive in that moment. And so like now as an adult, I might add that I'm noticing these little positive things that were there for me in those moments. But when I was in those moments, I have to highlight that I couldn't see those positive things at all. I know that they felt good. I didn't want to accept that they felt good, but I didn't see them because the depression had taken over me by that point. And I think that it had started from a very, very young age where I felt, I don't know, whatever energy or whatever soul that I had within me when I was kid, because I was told I was a very, very stubborn kid and a very troublesome kid. But whatever that soul and that energy that was there, from memory, I can see it just fade and fade and fade away. And so I was picking up these coping mechanisms. And of course, like these things are happening because of also trauma, a lot of, being in a lot of unhealthy and toxic environment. So all of these things are adding to, the version of myself that's growing up to pick up all of these coping mechanisms as well. And there's more, but sometimes you have to plead the fifth on some things because I don't want to go to jail. I do not want to go to jail. No, but I didn't do anything, but I'm just basically saying that I can't divulge everything, but I will tell you things that I think are relevant. So I'm picking up those coping mechanisms. I must say that they become very key to my survival. Now, when we talk about hope, people are like, oh, I have my fate. Some people also have my fate, and that's what keeps me believing that, I'll come through this mental illness. There's people who like have loved ones and family around them that are encouraging them and pushing them. And there's people who believe that they're in this alone, know that they're in this alone, and they do not have no one. They wake up every day and they're the only ones who are holding themselves through this. And I have had moments like that where for a period of my life, up until now, I felt like I had myself and myself alone to hold me through whatever crazy moment I was going through. And those were I must say, the hardest period. So if you're anyone that is listening that is in that moment, I can really sympathize and empathize with you, being in that place. I don't know how I got through that period, but I just held on, and and I think, what the funny thing is, at that point as well, I've also, like, again, in terms of entertainment and escaping being one of my favorite coping mechanisms, of course. I am going to books. Like, I got into books. I was reading. Oh my God. Olga was reading. And the genre that was really fixated on the most was romance. And it could just definitely speak to how much I had so much need for love and wanted a lot of love. But you know what I mean? Like, those romance books were, helping your girl out. Like, it was really helping your girl out in terms of, like, escaping. This is like my teenage years, so a little bit embarrassing, but hey ho. So yeah, I read a lot during those moments, particularly when I felt my loneliest and I felt like, yeah, I have no one. I still woke up, I still went into the world, and I still did the best that I could to fight, just not let this thing that's weighing me down and tearing me apart keep weighing me down, tearing me apart. I think those were the moments when I realized that, like, I am really, really strong. Like, I am really, really, really strong. Now, as a 30-year-old looking back, I'm recognizing how strong I was. And I took that for granted. And I didn't even acknowledge it. I didn't even tell myself. And I also didn't even know that I was so strong, that I was being able to hold on and deal with these things by myself and keep myself going. And even though I will have very, very, very low moments, those low moments still didn't get me over the edge. And I'm proud of myself for being able to do that. So if you are holding on, if you've held on and come out, well done. Because let me tell you, it's not an easy feat. It is not an easy feat. So yeah, coping mechanisms have been, like, a massive, massive blessing to me. I want to speak about coping mechanisms today because I'm like, there's positives to it, but let me tell you, there's also the negatives. And there's another day while we're doing the podcast on, like, my experience with coping mechanisms and the downsides to also having picked up the coping mechanisms that I've picked up on. I've got one episode that will come out, regarding those coping mechanisms and how they can be good for you and be bad for you at the same time, because if at that time you were using to protect yourself, but then later on down the line, when you need to let it go, and you've not let it go and it's still following you, it can be very detrimental to your life because it's not what you need anymore, and that it can then lead you to maybe ruin relationships or basically cause a lot of harm to your life because you still have the barrier, you still feel unsafe, and you still have the barrier, particularly if you're a trauma survivor. I'm speaking specifically to people who are trauma survivors and, have built coping mechanisms to be able to navigate the world and life. So yeah, as I talk about these things, I'm going to hopefully one day if I have it within me, do an episode on my love for music. I want to have one of my friends who's really into music to come and talk with me about music and the importance of music to your mental health. So one day I hope to do that. And this is not going to be a regular thing. And I'm not watching the new seasons of Drag Race because let me tell you. Okay, so let me say I want to do an episode on Drag Race, like RuPaul's Drag Race in particular, and how it's been, like, particularly since I started my journey into reforming my pessimism, it's been a constant source of light and positivity for me. not everybody's into these shows, but everybody have that kind of TV show or book or music or whatever that kind of maybe lifts them up, particularly if you're struggling and you don't have a lot of places to draw a source of inspiration or a source of hope from. Like, these are the things that sometimes you do draw inspiration and hope from. And for me, Drag Race have been one of them. And just in terms of watching stories and watching people who go through a lot of, adversity, and a lot of question and challenge about themselves, who they are, how they exist in society, and how they're able to still take that on and go out there, even in the most problematic, sometimes most, unconventional, sometimes most very, very beautiful way of like just shining a light and being a source of joy, a piece of escapism for other people around the world. And for some of these artists, like, who, like, in just the beauty of being able to kind of hone in on their art, even in their suffering, some of them anyway, particularly the ones who are in pain and are going through their own thing, use that art to be able to just amplify and shed light. And I just love the creativity of the show and how people can just turn a lot of their sorrow and internalize it into something really beautiful. And that's kind of what got me really to fall in love with Drag Race. But I want to one day do a breakdown of some of my favorite episodes and some of my favorite antics and moments. When it was Netflix, I've dragged all my friends to come watch Drag Race because I'm obsessed. But when it was on Netflix, it was like one of my absolute favorite. And then Netflix and RuPaul decided to, go be greedy and make more money in my shady way. So now it's not Netflix anymore, and I don't want to pay subscription for what Present Plus. So I'm just gonna wait. But it was like one of the things that, like, when like I have a massive moment or I'm going through heavy depression, is what I watch on rotation over and over again. Because it's just the way that it's edited and the way that it's like, of course there's like some emotional bits, but it's just up and upbeat all the time. And it's like I need that upness and upbeatness in terms of a source of entertainment. So hopefully I'll be able to do stuff like that at some point. But as I'm walking you through some of the first few episodes of the podcast, it's just going to kind of outline the things that I want to share, also show you my personality and tell you who I am, tell you about me and who I am as a person and what to expect from me, because none of you know me from Adam. Or that there's this girl called Banger here talking about mental health. What does she know and what does she understand? So I want to break things down and give you guys a little bit more pieces of me, and to kind of understand the way I think and the way I view the world and my outlook on like specific topics about, the way that we navigate life and stuff like that. So hopefully you kind of catch my drift in terms of what I'm doing on this podcast. But yeah, I hope to bring you more new things, and I'll start promoting the social media pages when I've actually gotten my ass to create them. And if you do follow me and you listen to this podcast, you'll find it from wherever, and the universe sent you, and you like it, please, send me a message. I will leave the email in the description. Send me an email. What I will want to do is hopefully be able to build an audience to, hear stories from people as well who I may not know, who may understand what I'm going through or may empathize and want to shed some light on me and light to people out there. Or, want to also come and validate themselves for me as I'm validating them by also sharing my experience to this journey that I'm deciding to take on. So yeah, let me know. And I've really loved recording this episode. To sign off, I hope that again you're all doing well. And if you're not doing well, I'm glad to see that you are still holding on and you're still here. Look after yourself. Put yourself out there more. Try and watch more new stuff. Do a like and dislike. It doesn't what you like, and put yourself into it. But don't hold yourself in your escapism too much. You know what I mean? As I'm going to be doing this journey, you're going to be hearing about how I have to come out of my escape and coping mechanism world to be able to challenge myself a little bit more, to get myself to grow and be the best version of myself that I can be. So I hope that if you are out there and you are entrapped in that moment, that you're hopefully able to find your way out and start really nourishing yourself and lifting yourself up. Because you only have yourself, and if you have yourself, you can then be able to reach out, meet new people, and they can also help you lift you up as well. But yeah, I wish you all goodness and wellness and happiness, and not too much sadness if you are in sadness. And I will speak to you again next time. Have a lovely time. Bye.
Raggedy.